So you're all welcome. Uh, uh, um, Mr. Edu, Clement, and Alaji Fuad will be doing all the talkings. I think you guys have a lot of experience in the field, so uh, you will be doing all the talkings and share more light into this particular discussion. But basically, what we are going to we're going to look at agribusiness in general. I mean, I remember some time back when I had a seminar somewhere, there was a question. I asked the difference between agric and agribusiness, and most of the participants were not actually getting the difference between these two, ways. I mean, some were actually relating aid to grain-fed production mainly by smallholder farmers. Those who came from rural communities recalled stories of engaging in agric activities as a form of punishment while in primary schools. So there were a lot of, answers coming from people. And so at the end of the day, you realize that most of them didn't understand the difference between agriculture and agribusiness. And so there was some kind of forth and back and all that. But I'm sure that today, once we have our expert on board, I'm sure that most of us here will be able to understand that, and we would be able to make good use of today's discussion to impact our lives. So we are expecting that by the end of the discussion, we would be able to know that anybody who is an agric business person is actually an entrepreneur. Mostly, we assume that those who establish their own boutique, those who establish their own restaurants or whatever are only those that we call entrepreneurs. But in actual sense, agric business persons are also entrepreneurs. But we have name for that. I'm sure that at the end of the discussion, our expert here will be able to tell us more about that. So once again, let me welcome Alhaji Fuad Clement. Clement, your other name, I find it very difficult to pronounce. Sorry about that. And we have Dr. Robert Edu from the Department of Agric Economics, KNUST. We have Aquaribo Kebu, and then we have Edward. Edward also is here with us. Timothy Yeboah Labi is also with us here. So let me begin with, Clement. Clement has been in the field for a while now. You've been a farmer for a very long time. Before Dr. Edu comes in to, share whatever he has with us, I think Clement is offline. So let's pick it for Malaji Fuad. If you can briefly tell us more. I mean, this is your idea. You actually brought this idea of organizing this particular conference. Can you please take us through some few things that we need to do in today's discussion?
Thank you so much, Brother Nuruddin, and good day to my senior colleagues, most especially Dr. Edu, who are happy to review one of his works on cocoa. I think that was a work he did in 2014 that has to do with mobile SMS extension, a project sponsored by the World Education and World Cocoa Foundation. So it's a pleasure being on the same platform with Dr. Edu. Mohammed, you've shown the Bule Abi as the lead discussant, which you should be. I think we started this whole discussion when there were some news items about the bane of agribusiness or agric in general. And I thought that since you being a journalist, it's important for you to facilitate such discussion, and we can easily lay our hands on experts across Africa. And kudos to you for bringing on board guys from Nigeria and other jurisdictions. Well, basically, I think maybe Dr. Edu, since he's in academia, he might tell us what theoretically agribusiness does apply. But as you rightly mentioned, whoever is into farming or agri, we call it, is supposed to be an entrepreneur, or in short, an agripreneur. However, either entrepreneurship or agripreneur, it starts with a mindset. So the person doesn't see himself as a business person. So as long as internally you don't see yourself as a business person, then the person thinks he's just a farmer and not an agripreneur. So the concept of agribusiness is basically treating agri as a business, or seeing agri as a business. What that means is that all that business management skills that is required to run an enterprise need to be deployed into agriculture. So it's not only the agronomy part, you need to understand the business part of agri. You need to understand the management, the marketing, the branding, among others. So as a starter, that's where I want us to look at defining what agribusiness means. And as I said, I think Dr. Edu will shed more light on that. With the fulcrum of the discussions, we're looking at what the pandemic that we are in at the moment, which is coronavirus or COVID-19. What threats has it posed to agribusiness globally? We do know that it has disrupted supply chains, both locally and globally. What are the opportunities that it presents for agribusiness professionals going forward? Mind you, this might not be the last time we're going to have a pandemic of this sort. The next one might be greater than this. So how prepared are we to take advantage of the opportunities that this lesson presents us? So this was what I'll say as an intro.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alhaji Fuad. So, Dr. Edu, what are some of the challenges that, I mean, you have been, I know you have been making a lot of observation and monitoring. What are some of the challenges that agribusiness persons are actually going through during this period of pandemic? I would come to Clement because he is a farmer and he has been producing a lot of food. I'll come to him and then for him to share his experience. But Dr. Edu, what have you observed so far? What is happening?
All right, Sheikh, thank you so much for bringing me on board. And I want to greet my colleagues on the other side. Just before I come to the challenges, I think just a brief on the differences between agriculture and agribusiness. From primary school, GHS and SHS, we all know that agriculture is the production of crops and the raising of farm animals for human consumption and industrial use. Now, that is what we call primary production. And so when we are talking agriculture, it's basically about that, cultivating the land to crops and raising farm animals. Now, agribusiness encompasses the other segments. So it is much broader than agriculture. Agriculture is only a segment. So we have the input supply segment of agribusiness, we have primary production, and then we have the post-production activities. They include the processing, the distribution, so the wholesaling and the retailing that we see out there, what the restaurants are doing, they are all doing agribusiness. So I want to just summarize by saying that agriculture is just a small segment of agribusiness. So farming is part of agribusiness. Wholesaling is part of agribusiness. Processing is part of agribusiness. In fact, transportation business in that space is also part of agribusiness. So I think that was just a brief intro. So to come to the specific challenges that I have observed in the value chain regarding the impact of COVID-19, I think first and foremost, when the lockdown was imposed, we observed quite clearly that people could not go out there to practice their agribusiness. So if you were a trader in Kumasi Central Market or my village market, there was no way you could go to that market to go and do your business. So we had a lot of challenges with that. Again, we are observing that access to food is becoming a challenge. Access to food is becoming a challenge because people are now scared to go out there to produce. People are scared to go out there to provide the processed foods that our people so demand. And so I think that the fear that the pandemic itself has introduced into our agribusiness space is something that is so critical. Now, if you have to go to the market, you are afraid. Recently, we're talking about the parking numbers in Obuasi and other places. Because of that, they had to shut down some of the market. Obviously, the products that are supposed to be sold there cannot be sold. The good aspect, though, is that if you go to the production centers, most of our farming communities, we don't have a lot of the challenge there. At the national distribution of the numbers that we have seen with COVID-19, you would see that we have a lot of the concentration in the consuming
Please,
centers.
Dr. Edu, I'm coming. If you are not speaking, please kindly mute your speaker for us, please. All right.
Yes. So I'm just saying that a clear observation is that COVID-19 appears to be more concentrated in the consuming centers. So Greater Accra, Kumasi, Secondary Takoradi, and Obuasi and other places. The production centers don't have the high numbers. So we can say that our farmers, even though they are afraid, they can go out there and produce. But the problem is that the consuming centers, who are supposed to take the output from the farmers, they are not active. And so the demand for the commodity is going to be affected in a way. And so I will say, by way of introduction or initial comment, that COVID-19 has introduced a lot of fear into the system. It has brought about a certain slowness in the growth of our agribusiness enterprises. And we only hope that sooner than later, we can find some solutions so that our people can bounce back and do the full agribusiness that we expect them to do.
All right. Thank you so much. Alhaji Fuad, do you have anything to add to what he has just said before I move to Clement?
I mean, as you rightly mentioned, though there hadn't been so much disruption with respect to the production end. If you recall, we had this discussion during the lockdown that the lockdown in the two biggest cities and these environs, Kumasi and Accra, led to a lot of post-harvest losses in the rural areas. I happened to find myself on the field during that period, and you could observe the enthusiasm at which markets or producers bring the foodstuffs to the market centers. However, because there are no market queens representatives, so for example, if you get to Seshio or so on a market day, you expect to have a lot of trucks coming from Accra and Kumasi, and also some parking into these VIP and bigger buses. They buy foodstuffs and take it back to the consuming centers. With the lockdown, these movements were limited and to some instances restricted. So these affected the producing areas where you had quite a lot of post-harvest losses, again, as well as drop in prices, because if the demand is low, what it means is that the farmers, they cannot allow it to go back. So they have to sell at which level the buyer is ready to give them. And the lifting of the sanctions or the restrictions was really timely, because if not, you saw the inflation figures, I think, for April, as reported by the Ghana Statistical Service. If the lockdown had prolonged, we would have seen a much higher food inflation that we saw in April. So that's what I would just chip in from what Dr. Edu mentioned?
Yeah, I think many people have made similar observation with regards to inflation and prices of food during the lockdown. I mean, there were some fake kind of increment in the prices of food. So, but Clement, have you gone through same? I mean, all that they've mentioned, you were on the field producing and supplying food to people. Have you experienced any of the things that they've raised?
Yes, thanks everybody. Hi, Clement here. And yes, definitely we have had our toll of the COVID-19 experience. I had instances where I had suppliers asking for products from UK, some from Accra, some from Netherlands, some from, and the mere fact that there was a lockdown, drivers couldn't even go. So transporting from where we are in the OT region all the way to Accra was a big problem. And then the other part has to do with, like the earlier on said, post-harvest loss. Because of the fact that we cannot move food to the cities, there's a lot of food that got wasted back here. And so for me also, it became a new challenge to see how do we tackle the post-harvest loss that has been embattling the country for a long time already now. So definitely, even as I speak, uh, for my exports has been basically shut down because planes cannot fly, and there's a lot of things that I mean, the cost wise and all these things are factors. So there are definitely still some pending problems from the practical side, but yeah, indeed, as a farmer, I will continue. I know it's not gonna be the end. I will continue to experience this. Um, Even for as a person, as a farmer, some of our laborers said we cannot stay at the farm, or some of our women group were more than the number the president says we could come together. So in retrospect, we had to, disperse the numbers or even cut them down. So yeah, it has gone a very deep way to cut a lot of agribusiness production, especially for us who are into the cooperatives and who are into the mass production. It does have a big effect.
Okay, so Clement, during the lockdown period, I know you were not affected in the OT region. You people were not affected, but during that period of lockdown, how many ton of food were you not able to
Uh,
supply to people during that period?
I think the concept that if you are not in the lockdown, you will not be affected is a big lie. Um, I think the psychological impact of those, once the cities are locked down, psychologically all the other places locked down. So even though people are not, not strictly under lockdown, people automatically put themselves in lockdown. Uh, and so yes, if I from my side going to the Oti River, I have seen uh, cargo cars that are loading close to 10 tons, 20 tons in a queue waiting to cross. And of course, there were reports of being extorted on the way by the security personnel because they used the term lockdown to get more money from the drivers who were trying to commute these foodstuffs to the cities. And of course, when you get to the city is another thing altogether. So yes, as I speak right now, I'm already looking for methods of drying some of our foodstuffs so that we can keep them for a longer time. But that's for me as a cooperative. Now consider the average farmer who does not have the investment or the time or the resources to even um, create these post-harvest methods to safeguard their food from getting rotten or wasted during this period. like you said, there's been a lot of food wastage. I mean, I cannot quantify it in terms of mathematics at this current moment because it's still happening. Um, but I can tell you that once the cities are locked down, everything shut down, including even implements, procurement, raw material procurement, which are normally done in the city, and all imports, these things. Of course, there's a concept that, foodstuffs and things can move freely, but who are the people to move those things? They are human beings. And so normally, once there's a lockdown in Accra, there's this psychology that happens in the rural areas that you cannot go there, so don't even bother. And as a result, it creates a cycle of effects on everything that is happening across the country.
Unfortunately, I didn't ask you, what do you produce? Do you still have some food waiting for to be supplied? I mean,
yes, we do. We produce a lot of Of course, in that production side, we have not been affected, but in terms of sales, we have been affected terribly. We were supposed to supply close to 3 tons of Moringa products to Germany, and at this moment, that is not possible because, yeah, the processing has been stifled, and everywhere you go to try to get the documentations together, they use the lockdown and the virus as an excuse to get more money and to kind of string you down. So as I'm sitting here, I have quite a lot of products sitting that cannot go outside the country, and the ones that are being sold in the country also have some limitations as to how you can get them to the clients. So yes, we are still facing it.
but you should be able to tell us the number of, the quantity that you have now. I'm sure you have people who take records of that.
Yes. At this moment, I have about a ton of Moringa products, and I have about half a ton of the lemongrass ginger mixed drinks that we normally serve out to our clients.
How much is 1 ton?
We are estimating around $6,000.
$6,000. That is about $9,000 in total.
Yeah.
Right, anyway, let me welcome Onukwe from Nigeria. He is actually in Nigeria. He joined us shortly a while ago when Clement was actually speaking. I would go to Edward and Timothy, then Onukwe, then I'll come back to Alaji, Fuad, and Dr. Edu. Edward, do you have anything to add? Are you a farmer too? In fact, I don't really know your identity, but are you a farmer? Are you into anything agribusiness? Hello, Edward. Hello, Edward. Okay, Mr. Timothy, if you can hear me, kindly introduce yourself and tell us whether you are into any of these things. Are you into farming, agribusiness? And also share your experience.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Timothy Eboalabi, and I'm a student of KN University, MPhil Agribusiness.
Okay.
Very good evening to my lecturer, Dr. Edu. I was because of the COVID, I've been forced to shut down. I was into selling of packaged gari and beans, which is also an agribusiness enterprise or agribusiness. And before even COVID started in Ghana, the demand for the produce came down, and has affected the business so much that we were forced to shut down because of, especially what has been said already, the fears that came with COVID. So it's really affected us, and demand went down, and we couldn't continue. So that's really what has happened on my side.
Okay. I think.
Hello.
Okay, Edward, you are now. I mean, we can hear you now. Kindly introduce yourself and tell us briefly. Introduce yourself and tell us briefly what you do.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Edward Ofe. I'm into poultry farming and a bit of poultry consulting. I do a lot of eggs, broiler, and turkeys. With regards to the COVID, its impact on the business. In fact, I may say it has been a bit negative because in processing of the poultry feed, about 60% of the product or the ingredients are being imported. And because the ports and the harbors were also not permitted to operate from the initial beginning of the lockdown, the remaining or the small ingredients in the country, the importers took the advantage of increasing the prices. Before the COVID, we used to buy the soya beans at 125 Ghana cedis. Through the COVID issues, it has now shot up to almost 150 Ghana cedis. Even maize that are being produced in the country, we used to get it around 50 cedis per the 50 kg bag, including transport. We are getting like, say, 60 cedis. Now we are getting it 80 cedis. So it is true that the COVID has come to impact negatively on agribusiness. Our brothers and colleagues who are producing eggs in the Bruno region and formerly Brongahavo region, now almost all the eggs are going bad because schools are down, hotel or hospitality industries are not operating. So we have a lot of eggs, but no market. We are having. Hello?
We can hear you, Edward. We can hear you. Hello, Edward. Okay. I think we have lost Edward. I can see him, but Edward, hello. Hello, Edward.
The link is bad.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you, Edward. All right. So let me just announce that we have just 10 minutes to end this. Not really to end this, but we have only 10 minutes for this particular. We can only do like 40 minutes. So when it goes off, please use the same link. I'm gonna establish the conference again, but you use the same link to join so that we'll continue from where we stop. So Onike, Dr. Edu, I'll come back to you. I think we need to be very brief on this thing so that we wouldn't keep long. I'll come back to you so that we'll talk about the opportunities and among other things. But Onike, let's hear from you, please.
Thank you very much.
Kindly introduce yourself and tell us what you do. I mean, most of the guys here don't know you.
Okay, thank you very much. Onekwe is my name. I'm a farmer here in Nigeria. I operate farms in Lagos as well as in Ogun State. My major area is vegetables, the leafy vegetables and the fruit vegetables. Now, I think the topic being discussed here is how the impact of COVID on agriculture. I'd rather want to start from personal experience before I go into how I think it impacted the generality of Africans. In my own case, I did cucumbers in a state, in Ogun State, which is outside where I reside, Lagos State. And of course, those who do cucumbers understand that after a certain point, you need to harvest. The best market that takes the largest volume is Lagos State. So my farm being in the next state, during the COVID period, we had lockdown, of course, in Nigeria. And beyond that, at the point of harvesting, the major market in the southwestern part of Nigeria was locked down. We transferred about 83 bags of ripened cucumber and arrived at the market, and at the gate of the market, we were shut out. Nobody was trading there that very day. In dollars, which I would simply do, it comes to between just about $950 on one trip, all lost. By the time we attempted a second batch, we decided to go with lower quantities, and the second batch also faced the same challenge. Yes, that is for me. But I also understand that a number of other people in the same industry, those producing tomatoes, pepper, who have to go to very long distances from the northern part of Nigeria, could not even bring their produce to the major market.
Mr. Edward, can you mute your microphone, please? Edward. Mr. Edward, can you mute your microphone? Okay, continue. I'll do it from here.
Greatly affected the vegetable sector so much. In fact, the impact, I don't think is what we would probably just, cover within a short while. I'm sure a number of people who had put in their funds, put in their savings, and put into agriculture, because yes, Nigeria is undergoing a resurgence in agriculture. A lot of people are going back to the farms now. So a number of people are putting in their everything, they are all in all to try and set up farms, and then suddenly COVID comes in. And the shutdown for perishables was disastrous. Disaster is the best word I can use.
Okay, so you in particular, how much did you lose from your vegetables? How much?
For the two batches, okay, let me tell you what happened. Like I said, the first batch we brought into Lagos, we couldn't sell. The second batch we brought into Lagos, which was minimal. By the time we got to the third batch, for cucumbers, you continue to harvest after every 4 days. By the fourth day, we were ready to harvest. We just left them on the tree. We left them. And those losses, before we harvested the next batch, we only sold, giveaway prices just to get things going. If from our tabulation, what we seem to have lost from just this one was just about $4,000. Just about $4,000.
That is for you. I mean, what you have lost.
That's what I'm saying. That's for me, $4,000 just went up in flames. That's what when I say we, I mean my organization, my company.
Okay, just within these 3 months of COVID.
Yeah. The lockdown meant, number one, no interstate travel. Number two, markets were shut down. So the major markets that took the volumes, nothing happened.
That's very serious. $4,000 isn't a joke. I mean, it's not a joke. It's a serious.
What we're doing right now is to ensure that we just finished planting now. Cucumber, we have another 6 weeks to go. But in 2 acres, we just want to ensure we recover something. Something just must come in. We just need to find a way to do something.
Well, so we have Munira. Munira, kindly introduce yourself. I think we are almost done. We have only 3 minutes so that I can start another conference. Again, Munira, introduce yourself, please. We are doing this because we want to know the people, I mean, who are part of us. I mean, it's very important for this particular discussion. And so, Dr. Edu, you've heard from Clement, Timothy, and Onikwe, and the rest of the guys. I think we are now under 2 minutes. I don't know if you can go ahead and when this particular session ends, we'll start it again. Then you continue from there, and then Alaji Fuad would also come in. So you tell us. I mean, you've heard them. What do you have to say as an agri-economist?
I think I can only sympathize with them. It's a bit distressing to invest money to produce, and at the end of the day, you find it difficult to sell and get all the returns that you need. So it's a bit distressing, but like you pointed out, there's opportunity in the midst of a pandemic. That is where you want us to go to. I think one of the biggest opportunities we can see is the fact that we need food commodities that can help us to boost our immune system. And we find that fruits and vegetables are key. Eggs are key. In the last address, the president was admonishing us to eat more of these. It is our farmers who produce these. So I think that if we can begin to support farmers who can produce some of these fruits and vegetables, we'll be able to get some returns, especially in this period where the restrictions are a bit relaxed. Again, there was mention of post-harvest losses. What it means is that we can do something about it by way of value addition. So if we can begin to look at processing, that can also give us opportunity so that if we are unable to sell the raw commodities, we will be able to store them, and then we can sell throughout the year. I think we are almost ending now. So I think those are the things I see. Storage also presents an opportunity. We can go into warehousing so that we can store a lot of the grains so that we can use it throughout the year. And I also see that we can leverage on technology. We see most of the restaurants now using...
Dr. Edu, I think we are...
He did highlight the opportunity that this pandemic presents to agribusiness professionals. And just to try to boost the enthusiasm of Vivian, you ask yourself the question, when the issue of lockdown came up across the world, when it became a buzzword, what were people rushing to buy? Were they rushing to buy cars, clothes, or what? They were rushing to buy food. Now that's the boom of agribusiness. So no matter the situation, people will eat. I mean, the global population is supposed to surpass 8 billion in the next 5-10 years. Who is going to feed this population? Ghana's population is heading to 30 million. African population heading to 320 million. Who is going to feed this population? We need people to go into agribusiness. Now, while everybody was mentioning the adverse effects of this pandemic, I mean, you know, I'm into beekeeping, so I have an apiary. On the contrary, the demand for honey soared, so we were finding it difficult to meet our demand. Why? Because honey seems to have an immune boosting property in terms of flavonoids and others. So there was a lot of demand for honey. I mean, a lot of people were complaining about high post-harvest losses, low demand. On the other side, there was a lot of demand for honey. And even in the consuming cities, there was a lot of demand for food, and that was what pushed food prices up. Now, in my introductory remark, I did mention the disruption that it has caused to global supply chains. I mean, with cocoa, for example, I mean, there were examples of ports in Singapore which were closed. I mean, some Malaysian ports as well were closed. Now, what it means is that Ghana is shipping or exporting its raw cocoa beans. It gets terminated at the port in Singapore or Malaysia. It delays before the buyer or the processing person can take it up. So those are some of the disruptions. Now, the lesson that this teaches us, and as clearly mentioned, it does give us an opportunity to enhance our productive capacity locally. But unfortunately, I've had a lot of discussions, being centered around the production of PPEs, among others. But the local production capacity that we need to enhance in the midst of this pandemic largely has to do with us. Can we shift from a heavily import dependent to a self-sufficient country? We know the rice import bill in excess of $1 billion. We import a lot of foodstuffs. So can we take advantage of this? My policy recommendation will be, okay, while we're looking at specific industries, what specific support is the government going to give to agri-SMEs so that people can then aggressively go into agriculture, increase their productive capacities? Then in the next 5-10 years, we can meet the increasing demand for food. Again, Clement did mention about disruption in exports. I do export honey to Nigeria as well. It's a bit difficult getting it out there. However, it again presents opportunities for other people, because you take the GCC countries, for example, they import about 90% of their food. Sorry, my video was up. The GCC countries import about 90% of their food, largely from India, from China, among others. When this pandemic struck, one of the first things that the Indian government did, which is a huge exporter of rice, was to restrict rice exports. Now, for any import or rice import or food import dependent country, if these guys are going to hold on to the rice export for a long time, what it means is that food security issues is threatened. So what kind of interventions are we putting in place so that the next time we're going to have a similar intervention or a much aggressive one, we are prepared? So that will be my point. Towards the end, our recommendation is that we need to have a specific intervention that targets agri-SMEs or agribusiness, so that the next time we face a similar pandemic or something of this magnitude, we are prepared, so that we will be threatened on food security issues or will be food insecure.
But there is this kind of misconception that agri is not profitable. It is not lucrative. And so people out there are deterred from going into it. You go to the northern part of the country, people are moving to the southern just to look for a job, when there are a lot of fertile lands there for them to cultivate something. How are we going to change the mindset of people when we have big people out there, rich men out there claiming that farming is not lucrative? This question is directed to all of us here. Clement, you're going to share your input,
Yes.
but Alaji, Fuad, you take it. You should take it
No,
first.
that's fine. There was a publication few days ago that a member of parliament did mention that I didn't read the story well, but I believe he did mention that being an absentee farmer is a bit risky. It will interest you to know that I can say over 30 to 40% of cocoa farmers are absentee farmers. These are people resident elsewhere to where the cocoa is being grown. You then ask yourself, you cannot be at two places at the same time. So it just, I wouldn't say lack of management expertise, but the ability to delegate and get the right results itself is something that no matter the profession you find yourself, you need to be able to do. You need to extend trust to the people that are going to work for you. If you are a business owner and you cannot be away from the business for the business to run successfully, then you don't have a system. That means you always have to be there for the business to run. So there's no continuity in that business. On the bit that agribusiness or agric is not profitable, for God's sake, you're going to feed over 7 billion people or 8 billion people. There is definitely a profitable venture. The challenge had been the lack of incentives. And I think the legislature did mention that the incentives that will encourage the youth to go into agriculture is virtually non-existent. You can compare that with what I know we have a guest from Nigeria, so he can share with us the interventions that they have or the incentive that they have, and it's very, very attractive. It's very attractive, where agribusiness professionals have a 3-year tax holiday, a lot of other incentives within the first years, so that you can set up. My word of encouragement to other professionals is that, look, the ECOWAS bloc gives us an opportunity. Don't restrict your market to the local market. There's a free trade area. So the ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme is an incentive. You look at where there are opportunities and tap in there, rather than restricting yourself to the Ghanaian market. In a few years, if we have a lot of incentives coming in that will drive the youth to go into agribusiness, that'd be really good. But at the moment, what we have is not incentivizing enough. For example, you take the poultry sector, as I think was it Timothy or Edward did mention. You raise a broiler, which you are expected to sell between 50 and 60 cedi, is going to compete with an imported broiler, which is about 35 to 40 cedis. In Nigeria, there's restriction in the import of broilers. So there are incentives beyond the tax incentives in terms of competitiveness. I mean, the imported ones, these are highly subsidized producers, and they are going to compete with you. It makes it a bit difficult, notwithstanding the health implications that come with some of these cheaper products.
Is farming lucrative? How do we convince people out there to go into farming or agribusiness? Is it paying?
Noreen, quickly, if I do not talk much, I can use the poultry business, for example. So
okay, all right,
you take what's the T-bill rate now? I mean, the risk-free investment that we have in this country is treasury bills, if I'm correct. It's less than 20% within a 3-month period. Now you can go into broiler business within a 2-month period. You can make more than 30 to 40%. What people don't understand, they don't want to take risk. Now, until you take risk, that's why everybody wants the low-hanging fruit, which is T-bills. So if it is 14%, if it is 15%, if it is 16%, yes, the person is ready to put in the money there for a 3-month period, then make the returns.
Okay.
But hey, you could make more than that with farming. I mean, there are times if you have the necessary incentives, you could make as high as over 100%. And those who are in the poultry sector can easily attest to that.
All right. So, Dr. Edu.
Yes.
Yeah. So I know you are. Yeah, we can hear you. I know you're from a farming community. I'm sure that your father is almost all your entire family are farmers. So
yes.
Are you making money? Are you making money in farming? and how do we convince people out there to go into farming? I mean, I know you can't just tell them go into farming without any showing them any evidence and all that. Some people are saying they want to go into farming, but they don't have money, and that they want support somewhere to come. But I've always said that if you want to open a provision store, you don't go to people to ask for money. You raise your money and then you set up your business. So at least you need to start something so that somebody elsewhere can help you. So let's hear from you whether you are making a lot of money from farming and how do we convince?
Well, the kind of farming that our people are doing, the small scale agriculture that we see around the country, it is very difficult to make a lot of money from that. So let's get it clear that yes, there are other businesses that can fetch you more money than agriculture. But obviously, agriculture is not an industry where you go and you are going to make huge losses. No, you can make it, except that when you compare with other enterprises, that is where maybe the politician was coming from. But I think that as a country, we must look beyond profit. Yes, farmers are not supposed to make losses, but we shouldn't go in for only enterprises that will give us the highest rate of return. Because the one who was speaking was talking about cold storage of what? Of fish, of chicken.
Imported
chickens,
materials.
yes, they were produced from elsewhere. They were produced in Brazil. They were produced in the US by farmers on large scale. And you are happy to import all the time. At the end of the day, you are creating employment for people in those countries. So I think that as a country, our government has to come to the point where we realize that agriculture is so critical, not just for survival, but also for employment generation. Now, if we don't produce enough because everybody wants to go into imports, now they have closed the borders. Where are you going to import from? Which food are we going to supply to our people? So I think that yes, there's a point in there that agriculture doesn't give you the highest of returns if you compare to other enterprises. But we have a certain ripple effect in terms of employment generation. We are going to take good care of our people in terms of food security. And so I think that that is where the discussion should go. We shouldn't just look at profit. Profit is only one of the many variables that we have to look at when we are doing production. So that is it. But just to add, I think government has to do more in this COVID era for our farmers. I think the Peasant Farmer Association was talking about reducing the price of fertilizers even further. I will even go a step further to say that they have to make it 100% free. So inputs like seeds and fertilizer that farmers go for at 50% of the cost. In this period, when we need a lot of food to feed our people, this is where government can say that the fertilizers are free, the seeds are free. So farmers come for them so that you are able to increase your production. Then our people can get food to eat. They are talking about loans for small and medium scale enterprises. How about farmers? This is the time that we need to give them some of these things so that cost of production will come down, so that the farmer will have incentive to go out there and produce. At the end of the day, when they succeed in their production effort, it is all of us who are going to enjoy the food security. So I think that we should take the point from the Honorable MP on face value and just not use it to discourage people from entering into agriculture. Agriculture is beautiful. It is agriculture that has raised many people. The money that we are all enjoying in Ghana by way of the money that we used to even import, they are coming from cocoa. Is cocoa not agriculture? If you go into agriculture and you don't have time to monitor, you cannot use that as a reason to discourage people. Marriage, let me end on this. Marriage. If you go into marriage and it doesn't work for you, does that mean that marriage is bad? Maybe the way you approach yours, it didn't work for you. So say that I could not do it right. That is why it didn't work out for me. But we shouldn't generalize it and discourage the youth. This is the time to encourage many more people to go into agriculture for our own food and nutrition security going forward.
All right, so
Nuruddin, if I can quickly just
go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Something. They have just to broaden the discussion, so you could understand the kind of misconception that some do have, and as the legislator mentioned, so you just restrict agribusiness or agriculture to the production part. Now we have value chains. I mean, global value chains. As the sister mentioned, you don't have to. Being an agribusiness person doesn't mean you are at the production end. Doc mentioned there's the input supply end, there's a production end, you have the marketing end, you have the processing end. Now there are people who just go to traditional markets, maybe Nima market, Kumasi markets, buy some of the product that Clement produces. So Clement produces it, he sends it to the market. Someone just goes and buy from the market. Cinnamon, lemongrass, and others, packages it and exports it. That person is an agribusiness person as well, even though the person is not in the production end. So people should try to appreciate what the chain is. I mean, it's a big value chain. Which part of the value chain gives me more returns? Which part of the value chain do I have the expertise? And any person who is interested in agribusiness should dedicate time and research or learn about the industry. And as I mentioned before we end, I would really appreciate, since we have a Nigerian colleague on board, even though this is an oil-dependent country where I think almost about 70 to 80% of their GDP comes from oil, the kind of incentive that they have, the something agricultural promotion policy or so, he gives us a highlight, and we'll appreciate the incentive that they are given to entice the youth or to entice the general population to go into agriculture. And as Doc mentioned, I mean, almost about 60% of our population is directly and indirectly engaged in agriculture. So agric is not only for food security, but again, it helps us address the national security threat of unemployment. So there's not something that we should be taking on a face value.
So, Onuke, Chief.
Yes, I'm here.
All right. You've mentioned your country, I mean, like 100 times here. So you'd have to speak for us, I mean.
Yes. Like I mentioned at the first session, Nigeria is undergoing a resurgence. Nigeria has realized that we cannot continue to depend on oil for survival. If the oil doesn't get exhausted, probably the world will have no need for oil. And frankly, we are probably getting to where we have more oil than we need. The supply greatly outweighs the demand right now. So what the government decided and came up with at a certain point in time is called NIRSAL, Nigerian Incentive-Based Risk Sharing System for Agricultural Lending. Yes. The concept is to take that risk, the risk of the farmer not being able to pay, the risk associated with giving a facility, those risks, and put it into the hands of a completely different agency. It actually came out as a small unit in the Central Bank of Nigeria. Within the last 3 years, it has transformed now as a registered microfinance bank. It operates independent of the CBN. Of course, the funding comes from the CBN and the federal government, but it operates with a high level of independence. Within the period of COVID-19, this agency, this microfinance bank, came up with very, very easy ways, I must say. They're actually relatively easy ways to fund small businesses, particularly agriculture. The first one was individual based. The second batch came out just about a month ago. In this particular case, is targeted at cluster farms. They encourage groups of farmers to come together and access the funds. My cooperative is currently, we're actually working on sending an application for that same program. What it does, it provides funds for would-be and existing farmers, so that with those funds, they can actually scale up. The target, when I explained to them that my cooperative has 12 hectares, I was told there that I should keep in mind that my target is 250 hectares. That is the target set for me. So once the funds are made available to my team, we have no excuse whatsoever not to scale up within the next 3 or 4 years. The essence is not just, I had somebody talk about providing incentives. For me, it's neither here or there for me, because for one reason, agriculture has moved, and you aptly titled this discussion, agribusiness. It is a business. Yes, we can seek for incentives, but if you know clearly it is a business, you know you are going there for profit making. A lot of young people we talked about the young people finding ways to bring them into agriculture, but a lot of young Africans are not too keen on waiting to get returns. They want to put money into a business and get the returns almost instantly. We need to work on that mindset. People like Clement, who are actually farmers, need to showcase what has come out from their farm. They should live their normal lifestyles. I was with a farmer recently, and while discussing with her, she said she needed also, after the entire week, to go to the club. And it just occurred to me that she was still living her life as a young farmer and still enjoying her life and still doing the things that are necessary. Agriculture does not take away your lifestyle. Rather, it enhances it. Asking young people to come into agriculture will not be based on incentives, will be based on the personal drive and an interest, as well as understanding that agriculture is a business. I think that's essential for most of us. A lot of people don't know that. They just think it's, we have this mentality of what agriculture used to be. So we are the ones who need to show them that no, agriculture has crossed that. Where you are now, you can do business with any person, any part of the world, and get your profit. As if you are trading with the store along the road. They need to understand that agriculture can give you what you need. In Nigeria, we have a small calculation. We say, when you are doing the staples, that's yam, maize, cassava, you don't expect beyond 21% return. I mean, for a business that you're getting 21% return, you need to do it and do it very, very well so that you probably will scale up and do something better. One of the critical issues I always consider for agriculture in Africa generally is the inadequate level of productivity. What do I mean? I told you I'm doing cucumbers. I plant cucumber with all the variety of beautiful seeds available locally. I get some from Kenya. I get some from different parts of Africa. What I plant, I get 6 tons. That's the maximum. From the same seed that somebody will plant elsewhere in South America, in Europe, and be doing minimum of 12, 18 tons. Those are the real issues for me. I think we need to step there, ensure that our inputs are top range. We have beautiful productivity from these things. If the productivity is high, I think we'll get exactly where we need to be. We will arrive there. Robert talked also, he mentioned about the value chain. I think that's key. We also need to keep value chain in mind. I don't want to repeat exactly what he said, but what I just want to add is this. You come into agriculture, pick an area that is also comfortable. Apart from it being profitable for you, it should also be comfortable for you. Why am I saying this? I had a friend, I took him to visit my farm. He was keen on agriculture. After walking through the bush for 20 minutes, he just shook his head and said, no. He'd rather be comfortable taking his vehicle and doing agricultural logistics. And that is what he's doing right now. So you find an area that you're comfortable with, and then you flow with it. Those are my submissions.
Thank you so much, Chief Onuke. Chief that doesn't have a palace. Anyway, Clement. Clement, I mean,
Yes.
anything to add so that we'll go to the our last round.
Yes, I am quite elated with all the quite energetic submissions on the prospects of agriculture, and I really do hope that the reality will continue to reveal itself. I personally went into agriculture on a quite passion base because I am an IT consultant, and my background, besides a little farming I did at home when I was young, I never really thought I would be in agriculture. But after considering all the foods that I was eating coming from junk, I realized that I had to change something. So now I am full-time into agriculture, mainly because first I want to solve my own food problem. And then the next is to consider giving whole and holistic food to the rest of the world. Yes, agriculture is lucrative and quite dependent on the area of agribusiness you are in. If you are into grains and all those, cereals, you have quite some challenges if you are into small scale. But what I will encourage a lot of young people is, for instance, my company, we are strictly into restorative agriculture. So we don't expect returns in the next 5 years or so. We're looking somewhere between 10, 7 years, 8 years, thereabout. Then we get before we start to see. In the last 3 years, we've invested about $5 million in the entire project, which is developing a 1,000-hectare land space into a restorative agriculture farm. Now, that sounds very complicated, but the whole idea is to grow a food forest. Now, if I had no capital, trust me, if I had no basis, I would be out by now. If I didn't have some sort of cushion, I'll be out by now, because trust me, it's not easy. So I like the optimism everybody is sharing, but for the young ones who are yet to start, understand that for the first 2 or 3 years, there will be a high amount of frustration. I've worked in the Netherlands, I've worked in Austria, I've worked in quite a lot of other places. And what I see, especially in Ghana, is that there's a huge gap in the value chain. And these are not easily filled by people, because a lot, like somebody else said earlier, a lot of people look at the production end of agriculture, and this gap is there. So as a farmer, I have to look at my crops. I have to look at researching into what is the best soils and what have you. Then I come back and I'm organizing transport. In one moment, I'm a farmer in the bush. The next moment, I'm organizing transport. The next minute, I'm looking for value addition. You know,
which should be someone else's business.
Which are all other people's business. I should, for me who loves farming, I should just simply farm and let somebody take care of the rest.
Exactly.
But the systems are not here for that purpose. The systems are not, the gaps are so wide open, there's nobody filling it. And that is where I will encourage people who are interested in agriculture to look into, so that you're just not looking at the production end, but you're looking at how do you fill these other gaps. You know, as a farmer, I just want to produce my crops. It's not my business, like Chief Onike said, to be thinking about moving my product to the farm market and the gates are closed. You know, this is Africa. You know, he should just produce his crops and allow somebody else to come and take it, get it to the supermarket, get it to the field there, let somebody worry about the certification, you know, all these things. But in Ghana and in Africa, and honestly, you have to do everything at once. You know, you, the farmer, are the strategist, the designer, the planning, the accountant,
the researcher,
the researcher. And so as a result, what time do you have to actually make forward the progress in terms of proper agriculture? So you see, at the end of the day, you are everywhere. And that is why a lot of small businesses die when they begin, because before you know it, tax is swallowing them because they have to take. I currently have around 112 staff. And for me personally, who loves farming, I don't like management. So if I don't have a strong person in management, you can know what will happen to me, you know, in a few years to come. So some people love agriculture because they have a certain passion in a particular area, but they do not have the skill to manage other sections. So we need people to fill these gaps. And this is where the government needs to formulate policies, needs to formulate the systems and make it lucrative. If we continue to use weeding and agriculture as punishment in our schools, unfortunately, this gap will continue to be there. So let's, Nuruddin, you have a big job to do to educate our teachers, our people, and to help other people, you know, come in to fill this gap. For me, I am lucky, I'm blessed that I have other sources of income. I have other ways of looking at things, and I'm looking at my whole project holistically. So in the last 3 years of investing about 5 million, I'm moving. I'm still surviving. But trust me, if you're going to do that without any basis, you will flop.
That's great. I mean, I mean, I think we are 7 years, so you can share the 5 million among ourselves. And everybody will Madam Vivian, do you have a question to ask Alhaji Fuad, Clement, and Robert, so that we'll go to our last session? Do you have any question to ask them, please?
I want to say that I want to maybe solve a problem. I'm into digital marketing, and I am trying to see if like the marketing of our produce outside it's possible, so that like some of the value chain system, even inside here, like how young people can enter into it, so that when the farmer is producing, he knows he has ready market. That's one thing I've been thinking about and looking at.
Okay, so I think I can
And
help a little bit with that.
there are lots of young people around. Yeah, there are a lot of young people around and they have skills. So how are we getting them? Because maybe they don't want to farm like you. Yeah, but they want to do something in farming or in agriculture. Is it a value addition or what? So that's what I want to, the part I want to enter. Really, if you think about agri.
A lot of guys,
Right.
Alaji Fuad and Clement and Dr. Iru, Dr. Eddie would
All
help.
right, quickly. So, I mean, from her background in digital marketing, so she can feel the aspect of, I mean, ag tech, as in agri-technology. So with a lockdown now, you have a lot of it's a booming market for e-commerce. Now you have e-commerce platforms. I mean, they did mention that Amazon, I mean, his worth has doubled or more. What it means is that people like you might not necessarily have to go into the production, but then look at the e-commerce part, so that when I produce my honey, when I produce my palm oil, there's an e-platform where I can market it. I mean, beyond that, you can also, and I don't want to conflict with what Clement did mention, which is a bit capital intensive, but we have to start encouraging people in school. And I think there's something Dr. Roberts, Dr. Edu and co would have to look at. From year one at school,
it's possible.
Students should learn to
so
take
that like some of the value chain.
There are some interruptions. To take advantage of some of these crops that are harvested, I mean, up country. So Nuruddin, you take the north, for example. How many students, I mean, agribusiness students in KNUST are into the marketing of local rice? It needs to be packaged in a certain way. They will tell you that they don't have capital to do that. I mean, if you're holding a 2,000 city, 3,000 city worth of iPhone, that's capital. So let's find a way to start from somewhere. Someone can easily buy. I mean, that's the honest truth.
This is a serious topic.
That's the honest truth.
Sure, but they wouldn't mind you.
Let's start from somewhere, no matter how low the scale is. Let's start from somewhere. Definitely. I mean, I met a guy who buys, I mean, gold from the Kushegu markets and sells in Accra. So maybe on monthly basis, he buys about 3-4, brings it to Accra. He can easily make about 60-70% profit on it. And you know how much it costs up there and how much he can sell here. There are guys who do same for game fowl. He brings it here, get it slaughtered, get it dressed, and sell. These are all part of the chain. So identify where you have the capability to fulfill, where you definitely have the capital to fill in. And as I said, no capital is too small.
We'll be going
Someone
off
can
very
sell
soon.
the laptop. Maybe Vivian can easily sell some nice, a combination of bag and shoe, which will cost about 300, 400 cities. She can start a peanut butter business with it. So you buy peanut butter from the Nima market or a market, get it branded, get it packaged and branded, and that's where you start. So you have to start from somewhere. With honey, we started buying from elsewhere, get it packaged and sell. Now we have integrated backwards. So we have our...
Okay, still on what we are discussing, I just want to point out two parts that I saw in the flyer, and that's the opportunities and the threats. I don't want us to lose sight of this. We need not lose sight of this. One of the greatest opportunities that Africa is presented with agriculture is that we have over 1 billion mouths to feed. So for me, one of the greatest opportunities we have is that the market is still local. It's still, when we add value, we can move to anywhere we want to move in the world. But the very first thing is that the market is still local, which means what? Whatever you produce at whatever form, whatever level of production, you can find a market. We have 1.2 billion mouths to feed in Africa. We need to look at that critically. The second one is for me, for policymakers, agriculture forms for me an opportunity for serious industrialization. Our policymakers need to begin to think very, very well. When they think very well, we're not talking of gigantic factories and all of those. We're talking of even at the micro level, small levels. There are lots of people who have these competencies of doing things at small micro levels. Yes, I know a lecturer talked about financing. We will not doubt the issue of financing. But even at that, we have people who are able, they are capable. Young Africans are capable of doing things at the micro level. And of course, once we have that industrialization, employment follows. The other part, which I consider the major threat to agribusiness and agricultural development, is the politics that African leaders play. That is our major problem. Unless and until we make a change in the politics that is played in Africa, where a political party will want to dominate any and everything and not accept ideas from the opposing party, or they have minimal ideas, they just want to be in power, not for making change, but for just the sake of being in power. We've had leaders who have done a lot of damage to Africa and done great deal of backwardness. They pulled Africa back by this lack of policy. So the politics for me is something that needs to be addressed. Our politicians need to understand that Africa is where the world wants to be right now. So they need to come up with policies that will help drive agribusiness.
Mr. Edu, go ahead so that you
Yes.
can.
Yes, I think it was interesting when is it Clement who was talking about changing the mindset of our students and asking them to work in smaller groups and all that. I think that's a very beautiful point. We have been trying to encourage students to work in smaller groups. We've been trying to encourage them to go for attachment and internships in their own local communities and districts. So for example, our friend who is investing about 5 billion in 5 million Ghana cedis or dollars in agriculture. If we can be in touch, then we can arrange for some of our agribusiness students who come from that region to be able to now link up so that they can go there for training and attachment. When they do that with people who are already in that time, their mindset will change, and then they will begin to appreciate all the opportunity, the value chain. I also want to indicate that government has a lot of role to play. We should not underestimate the role of the government in this matter. Yes, they can aggregate the small amount of money that they have, but sometimes you need to begin to shape their interest. So the lady was talking about trying to enter the export market. Now you have what we call EP, Export Promotion Authority now. What are they doing? Do they sit in their offices and wait for people to visit them, or they go to some of these places to explain to them the opportunities that are there? We have a lot of people who don't have jobs. They have degrees, they don't have jobs. There are opportunities in the chain. In the interest of the society, I think the state agencies should begin to also reach out and visit some of these institutions. Of course, the universities are trying to bridge the gap between industry and academia by bringing some people into our classrooms to encourage the students. But I think the state agencies have even a bigger role to play so that together we all can shape the future of our individual countries on the continent. I think that is where I will want to end my comment as far as this discussion is concerned.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Dr. Robert Edu. We really appreciate your time. It's unfortunate you would have to leave us now, but I'm sure that we're going to have this some few weeks or some few days to come. So we would keep in touch. We really appreciate. So Clement, Dr. Edu has thrown a challenge to you. They want to bring their students to your farm. I mean,
we've been looking for them actually.
Okay, I'm gonna share your number.
I'll link up.
I'll share your number with him, and then I'll send his number to you. I mean,
Definitely.
it's gonna be very, very interesting. I mean, when the students come, you will see me around, definitely. But if the students don't come, I will not come to your farm. Seriously, I will come. I'm waiting for the students to come there, then I'll visit your farm so we can tell a very beautiful story.
So far, there are some students coming from Kita.
No, we are talking about KNUSC students. No, if you are talking about Wenche, we are talking about KNUSC students. When students are coming from Wenche, no, we want students from KNUSC to join you. Then I'll also come to your farm.
They are welcome. They are most welcome.
All right. Thank you so much, Doc. All right.
We'll be in touch.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. So Chief. Now, Vivian, we haven't answered Vivian's question. Alhaji Fuad hasn't come back yet, but we haven't answered Vivian's question.
Vivian,
I think
Vivian.
she still needs to be answered. Most of the time, people ask me, I want to go into farming. I don't have money. I don't have anything. How do I go into farming without anything? But for me, I've always said that if you want to start something, you have to start it small. Because if you don't start it, the likelihood of you, I mean, how should I put it? The likelihood of you changing your mind is very high. So mostly what I tell people is that just make sure you're gonna start something small. With time, you would be able to progress. So the last time I had a seminar in one of the districts here in Ashanti region, Ghana, more than half of the participants were national service personnel. They had graduated from the university, polytechnics, among others, and they were doing their national service there. So they actually developed interest in farming. They wanted to venture into it, but they didn't have money. The startup was not there. So one of them asked a question that, how do I go into sheep or goat farming when I don't have money somewhere to start? So I think by then they were paying them 300 Ghana cedis or so. So I told him that. I asked him where he was coming from. I mean, he was coming from a village meters away from Nkawie here in Ashanti region. So I told him that if he's able to save 100 cedis a month, then at the end of his national service, he might have gotten 1,200 cedis. Am I right? 1,200 cedis. So I told him that, okay, by then you could get one sheep at 100 cedis. So why don't you dedicate 100 cedis every month to buy one sheep and leave it at your village? You have one new WhatsApp messages. So I spoke for a while, and later on I had to meet some of them, encourage them, tell them what to do. So about 5 of them started that very month. And at the end of the year national service, some of them had like 10, 8, and by then some of the sheep had even given birth. And so one of them called me, and I went to see the farm, and I was so excited because he has more than 12 now after a year. So for me, I think that if you want to go into something, you need to start from somewhere small, then you grow. But if you want to wait till you get everything set, you might lose that passion. You might lose that, kind of zeal to go into that. So mostly, even if I have a plan to do something and I don't have the resources, mostly what I do, I keep writing it all the time. I keep telling people that this is what I want to do, and that really encourages. It always encourages me. So I think that for Vivian, if you want to go into farming, I just want to add up to what they have said. You don't need, you get to a certain point, you need a lot of money to expand, but you need to start from somewhere. When you start from there, I'm not sure Clement just started from where he is now. You have to start from somewhere before you get there. But most of us always look at people up there. We are looking at, okay, I just want to be like this one within the next few days, which is not possible. It will not happen anyway. And you cannot also sit in the city and think that you can go into farming and make money. Sometimes you have to move away from the city. If you really, really want to go into farming, you have to move away from the city and go and settle somewhere for a while so that you can concentrate. There are a lot of people, the white men who move from Europe to Africa. Some of them come to Africa purposely for that, because they know when they come to Africa, they will be able to do whatever they want to do. But when they stay there, they cannot do. So they move from their convenient place where they are, like, for instance, they will be enjoying there, but they move to Africa where you experience a lot of hard, bad temperatures and all that. But they will still be here because they have a mission to accomplish. So I think let's begin to think and start doing something that we think. I mean, if we really want to go into that, let's build up that passion. Either than that, in the next few days or few years, you wouldn't be able to do anything at all. So Clement
right.
and Chief,
Yes.
I will leave you guys to actually answer Vivian's question. I mean, you need to convince. I want you guys to convince her to, so that the next time we'll be speaking to Vivian,
let me come in
then
with
she will be
Vivian.
telling us a lot of stories about her business.
Yes, let me come in with Vivian. Yes, I have an IT background. So when you talk about digital marketing, I already thought, okay, that's a good place to start, because this is where you use the most minimal investment, because most of your investment will be contacting farmers, trying to link up with other farmers. Not just that, but we also have a gap in terms of certification. If I'm looking for agencies that will take care of these things, because as a farmer, you do not have time to go to FDA, follow all the protocols of FDA, get EcoCert certification, go through the protocols of EcoCert, get to GSA, get all the protocols together. So because the systems are so confusing, a lot of people will just give up. Of late, I'm realizing that a lot of this return to Ghana is bringing a lot of African Americans into the country who are saturating the e-commerce market, mainly because they have US accounts and PayPal and all these things, the payment gateways. That makes it easy for them to accept and also do merchandise online. So, well, we are currently lucky to have another payment platform like this mobile money platforms, which is helping us to be able to receive and make payments. The only aspect of that is a bit of a problem for e-commerce is the trust issue, where you have to deal with, how, if I transport my product to you, how do I get my money in real time? And so that is some other gaps that you can fill. From my part, I didn't actually start as a company interested in running my project as a business. I started this as a charity, where I wanted to just grow moringa and other parts of my project. I just wanted to grow something to help the rural poor people. And then along the way, people started asking me, can we get some moringa product from you? Can we get some other products from you? And it's because I had the opportunity to put all my services online. So once my services were online, people were asking me for things that I would easily give out for free. So I thought, okay, then let's look at the price package in also in that terms. So yes, there are a lot of farmers out there, and so Sister Vivian, I think you have a great business, you have a great gateway. So the main thing is to link up to these gateways. A lot of people will come and say, oh, but there's already existing systems. Trust me, there's also billions of farmers who do not have places to sell their product. And if you can take this off, give it to other people to do the packaging, then you focus on getting another photographer who is another employment for somebody to do the pictures, and then you do the production. I mean, you push it to the end consumer online, and then you can get another person to take care of the delivery. There's so many in the sector that you're talking about that can make your life easier. The problem with it is that starting small, it means you have to do the contact with the farmer, do the packaging, sometimes to help the farmer, do the delivery side and all that's in between in the beginning. But as you grow with more farmers on your platform, then you begin to segregate the responsibility to other people so that it can help you focus on just upgrading and working on the e-commerce. It can be a ton of work if you think about it, but from the beginning it will look really small. But because I am, as a farmer, I am located in Oti region, in the heart of a place that cars does not easily go. That's why Nuruddin is afraid of coming. But I'm still able to put my product out there. I get orders from Netherlands, from Germany, from Switzerland, from Accra here, from Tamale, from other parts. But I'm still located and of course it has, if you can get over the hurdle with internet in the local community. So I think what I will more encourage you is your job is important for us, because I'm looking for people like you to take up some of these burdens so that I don't have to look for people to buy my product. I just produce it, send the pictures and whatever to you, and then you take care of the rest. And I think this is how we can all grow together. So it's very important and essential for us.
All right, I think we have someone just joined us, Francis. Francis, who are you, please? Can you briefly introduce yourself, please? But we are winding up. We are winding up. So, any other question to ask Timothy Vivian? Any other thing?
Oh, there's no other question for me for now. Just that I'm really much encouraged. Although I've not been into farming, I've been studying all this while. I started a little business on the side and it went down the line. But I'm really encouraged with the digital side and using technology to actually boost agriculture, agribusiness. Because my dad is actually into farming, but I've not really paid attention to his side yet. Because most of the time I'm also equally discouraged by capital. But someone said something that a little capital, right? You go on from there, and if you are afraid of risk, then you don't go into agribusiness. So I'm really on the other side, really listening to the experts, and I'm taking a few from it. I'm really thankful. Thank you very much.
So you don't even have a garden?
I do have a garden. I have a garden.
Oh.
I have a garden, but actually, what I'm aiming at is not just a garden, but something that goes beyond just a garden.
Definitely.
But if you don't take good care of your garden, how can you move beyond that? You just
That's true.
You didn't even value it. That's why you didn't measure. You could have mentioned, okay, I have a garden and I want to move from the garden to another level.
Okay,
I mean, in the cities, if you go
flourishing.
to Clement, you have traveled. You go to the states and other places. People rely. They actually
one
depend
plant
on their
and
garden.
somebody is completely happy with it.
Yes. They rely on their gardens to feed their family. So I mean, we saved a life some time back. There was a woman who was buying cabbage just around Comfornochi Hospital. If you're heading towards Santasi Runabout, in the morning, that's where they sell them. She bought it there. Sometimes she's a nurse, a midwife, of course. So she bought it. We had this platform, Clement, the Food for Africa. So when we started, she was one of the first people we added to the group. So we were educating farmers on establishing their gardens and all that. So she bought it one day, and then not knowing it was poisonous, it was poison. So she took it and she was hospitalized. So later on, he came back and then asked me, and then we traced the farmer and realized that they were using a lot of chemicals on the vegetable. So she had to establish her own garden in the house. Since then, she has never bought any vegetable outside outside her house. And all the time when she calls me, she will thank me for, and all I always say, I mean, let me add for that. I will continue because Clement just want to pick something out of my statement. And anyway, I'm just Mr. Fuad. Hey, Alaji Fuad is back now. So, Vivian, we are wrapping up with you. Francis, I haven't heard from you. Chief, are you going to add something to it so that Alaji Fuad would finish up with it?
Okay.
We'll run it up.
I'll just point out something that I think I'm going to demand from you. One of the things you need to pick from.
I'm Francis. I joined you late because I had a notification quite late. I'm an agronomist with specialty in greenhouse technology.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello?
All right. Thank you very much, Francis. Okay, continue. Chief on it.
You need to critically listen to. The doctor talked in that line. Clement has mentioned a large amount of it, and I think you need to have a session on that. It is agriculture value chain. The entire value chain for agriculture can probably take over 80% of the unemployed Africans and give them gainful employment. The agricultural value chain, when we talk of things like, for instance, agrochemicals, it's part of the agricultural value chain. A company that I know produces fungicides from local materials, and they are doing very, very well. In fact, it's sold as organic material, as organic fungicide. They use entirely local materials. There are other companies, their specialty is to bring packaged one, prepackaged ones and sell off. The agricultural value chain for just agrochemicals alone can be split into 13 different subheads. We also have breeding, we have crop production. That's the one most people are aware of. Most people don't even focus on seed production. There are companies who should specialize only in production of seed. So I'd like you to also look at agricultural value chain. It's such a huge topic to discuss, but we're not talking about that. Getting people into agriculture, one thing that is key, I touched on it before, they need to find their space. That's what we describe it as. You come in, you have no business doing the entire 9 yards. You have no business doing the whole 9 yards. You just pick an area, specialize in it, make what you can from it. There's hardly any part of the value chain that is not profitable in agriculture. There's hardly any.
Right.
I said with you of somebody who thought he could come into the bush, seeing what the bush was like, has chosen logistics now and is enjoying logistics so well, making good money. That's why I say there's hardly any aspect of value. Yeah, there's this area that many people not to talk about. This program I told you about, the NESA program, is trying to introduce it to Nigerians. That is agro-geomapping, mapping on just getting a map of a particular farm and placing it in the internet and making it available to investors.
All right. So I think, thank you so much, Chief. I like Fuad. So we'll pick it from there and let's wrap up.
No, I think Chief rightly summarizes it, and that he highlights the point I made on the youth appreciating the whole value chain. Now, as I did reiterate again to Vivian, even people with IT background have a space in the agribusiness sphere, and that's the agri-tech part. So yes, find your space. I mean, there are a lot of opportunities out there for whoever, no matter your skill, that you can tap into. You don't have to go into poultry making or poultry farming. You can buy from someone who has a poultry farm and market it. You are part of the chain. The global agri-food space is in excess of $8 trillion, Nuruddin.
Wow.
The agri-food sector is in excess of $8 trillion. So it's a bigger space, and we have the comparative advantage in terms of the climate, in terms of the soil, in terms of the population structure. We have a very youthful population. So let's take advantage of that. However, before you can do that, you need to understand the global agri-dynamics. And that's why people need to dedicate time to study, to learn. And I was making a point before I went up that it is something that I'll be expecting, especially from academia. People in agribusiness, people in marketing in the universities. KNUSC, for example, can easily go into poultry farming. They have the land. I know that they used to have some ranches. I don't know whether it's still there. Now, those in agribusiness can focus to market some of these foodstuffs. And that has how changed. So I did make a point that the GCC countries, that's the Gulf countries, they import 80% of their food needs. And look, with the lockdown, with the COVID pandemic, India puts an export ban on rice. And India is one of the biggest rice exporters. So the implication on some of these heavily import-dependent countries is that they're going to be food insecure. Now, how strategic are we as Ghanaians or Africans putting ourselves to take advantage of some of these opportunities? Kenya exports in excess of about $3 billion of vegetables and fruits. We have the climate, we have the soil. Let's start from somewhere. You might not go down into the production, but then you can look at some part of the chain. Maybe you buy it from the producers, get it packaged, exported, or even the local markets. Now the local market is huge, and I did cite it also the West African market, because most of the export market could come with its own limitations. They find a way to have protectionist policies in terms of their standards. They want to do as our friends in Nigeria rapidly do it and say we are banning import of this. No. But the kind of standardization and certification that will require to penetrate an European market is almost like a protectionist policy. So let's understand our local markets. Let's understand our regional market. This is a region with a population of in excess of 300 million. It's a huge market. So let's see how we can trade among ourselves. There's a book that I was reading, the Cola Caravan, even before they come into by one Lovejoy, before they come into the West Coast by these Europeans. I mean, those from Ashanti to the Mosi Kingdom to the Sokoto Kingdom, they were trading among themselves. So let's try and take advantage of the ECOWAS free trade area, even before the whole African free trade area will come on board. So there's a lot of opportunities for agribusiness professionals. There's never been a better time to be an agripreneur than now. I can tell you that for a fact.
To ask Vivian. Vivian, thank you very much, Alaji, for that. Vivian, do you have any other question to ask? We are wrapping up.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead, please.
But I'm trying to look at this packaging. Like, I don't know if any of you know where I can get packaging machines by, or like good packaging machines, like the one from China. If there is anything like that in Ghana here, that's what I want to do.
Okay, Alaji Fuad.
No, it all depends on what she wants to package. Okay, now find out what you want to package. Are there other companies doing similar things? You find out what where they got their machinery. There are some local expertise with our artisanal guys. You show them the equipment you want, even if it's on the internet. You show them a picture of it. They might be able to, to design a similar one for you. Okay. Yes, the local expertise is there.
I want to
know,
like
exactly
where
what kind of packaging machine you want.
Like, I want to know where I will find them.
Check online. As I said, I don't know exactly what kind of packaging machine you want.
Okay,
So
something that can package
what?
rice in rubber, like rice in rubber or something.
It's readily available. So you just get the rubber. I mean, there are a lot of companies here in Accra. Some of these Malcolm group of companies, they do manufacture some bags for the packaging of rice. Now, what you need to have there's what they call the sealer. Yes, which kind of temperatures are they? I mean, to close it up. I mean, I've seen people who do 1 kg and they even just use staplers to package it. They put it in the bag, in the plastic bag, a transparent one, of course. If you don't want that, I mean, there are companies here which do that. Such a line, you definitely find some here.
Okay, so packaging is not a problem, especially for us, the local people.
Let me
because
come in with
like
that.
especially when you're selling online, you need good packaging.
It's very important.
It sells for you. Yeah.
Vivian.
So packaging. Yeah.
Packaging is a problem. Don't deceive yourself with this. Packaging is a problem because even the packs, especially like paper pouches and stuff like this, most of them are imported. The key is to find someone doing similar to what you do.
Right.
Then you team together. Then you order these products together because the cost of the machines are quite high. I do a lot of packaging, and I get a lot of my materials from Italy and also from China. Now, of course, you can see the clear difference when it comes to quality-wise. Like I said, it's not so easy to get them unless you want to do some improvised packaging. Of course, Interplus in Accra do have some very good the materials, and then also they can even order for you.
The Moani group also, one of the Malcolm group of companies, they have some packaging material.
And when it comes to printing also, I've used quite some different ones. I think there's one Infinite that I've worked with in Accra at around Osu, and their print quality has been quite good. So I mean, it is difficult, but you have to do a bit of research, and you will definitely find. If you cannot find, look for someone doing similar to what you're doing, and then you can team up to buy the packages and import them. And then right now I'm doing the same with another company because the packaging are just too complicated to get. And then I just let them organize it. I pay my portion of the import duties, and then I pick my part of the package. So there are other ways to improvise, but it depends on you. It depends on you. I, for instance, I'm very nature oriented, so I want packages that are climate eco-friendly and all that, and getting those here are quite difficult to get.
Thank you, Clement. Thank you very much. Maybe we can also think about it later.
Definitely.
Yeah, how we can get
no
a lot of things.
reading can link up.
Okay, so that we can get a lot of packaging done for our markets, because I think the whites are getting into our market because of their packagings. And if
because they send it outside and package it and bring it back. This is what they do.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not all of them because they know that we don't have the systems here. So they send it out, package it, bring it back, and only the problem is, of course, it now becomes a high-end product, so they sell it higher.
So it means that it seems that we have to invest in packaging also in our
definitely.
country. There should be a lot of money.
Yes, there's a lot of money for you if you can help, if we can team up to do that.
Yeah, so it seems that agri sector really can make a lot of money for Ghanaians if we will look at this thing very well. Like even packaging alone, marketing. we have to be serious as a people.
Okay.
And I'm happy that we have started this conversation, and it will go further and further and create greater things for our country.
Definitely, most definitely. Is Nuruddin out of the network?
Sorry. I didn't know I even. Oh, sorry. So we are wrapping up. 1 minute. We are done. So Alaji Fuad is always available. Clement is always available, and every other guys that we have here are always available. So we now have a platform where we can always communicate. If there's any issue, any topic that we want to talk about, we can always put it on the platform. I'm sure that in our next discussion, I will try and get some experts from Kenya, Nigeria, Tanzania, and some other African countries. So even if we want to get someone in Europe to just also, an expert who is into agri to also add his voice to whatever we want to do, I'll try as much as possible to get them on board. But for now, let's begin to think on what our discussion will be in our next meeting. So think let's call it a day. We are almost done. We just left with 1 minute. So thank you so much for your time. We'll keep in touch on the platform.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Alright.
Bye.
You see me? Yeah, you see me. Let me see.